Okay. Is everyone having a good day? I cannot believe it's almost May. That's one of the first things I'm thinking about is it's the end of April already, and we're basically in May, which is then summer is right around the corner. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Awesome. Yes, happy May to you too as well. I know it's hard to believe. So, okay, I'm so glad that everyone can hear me. So, and hopefully you can see my screen as well. I am really excited about this topic. I know that a lot of you want to see more sales on Amazon. You want to see more traffic to your listing. So I'm going to share a lot about really how to win for less, because Amazon being search engine optimized on Amazon is so important and everything is always changing. So I'm going to really focus in on this year, what works for Amazon SEO and how to create that for your listings so that your products and your listings can get seen. So we will jump right in. In case you don't already know me, it won't be available following this call, but if you want to send an email to contact@clickfluency.com, we can get that over to you. So just request it through that email and we can get that over to you. Good question. So, okay, in case you don't already know me, I am Becky with ClickFluency, and I am going to, there we go. Basically, this is going to be it'll take about 45 minutes that we'll discuss. I'm going to try to keep it really concise for you. But one thing I want you to do is, I know anytime there's something going on, it's really easy to get distracted with having other things open and, looking at your phone and things like that. So I would just ask that you be present, since you are taking time to grow your business, whether you are the owner of a brand or the head of marketing for your company. Really, this is going to help you move forward with Amazon and really get an advantage we want to see that over your competitors, right? So that you can gain that traction that you need. So I think it's really important that you make sure that your distractions are put away and just focus in on this, because when you're distracted doing other things, you really don't do any one thing very well, right? So just to kind of explain a little bit more about who I am and who we are at ClickFluency. Like I said, my name is Becky, and we've been in this space of Amazon for over 6 years. We've managed over 6 million in Amazon sales and just thousands of hours of experience between our team members. So we know this market. We focus really heavily into Amazon. This is our focus. And just a track record of success that we've seen for brands. On average, about over 6 months, we see about 164% growth. And that's always really exciting to see. That is something that we are passionate about seeing. And I think that a lot of things I'll share with you today are going to help you really to continue to get an advantage and grow on Amazon, because I know a lot of you, it's getting more competitive on Amazon. I know you've seen it ever since 2020, especially. We started noticing a huge shift. So I really want to make sure that you can get the most out of today so that you can really help your brand continue to succeed. So, okay, let me explain what we'll cover. We're going to talk about kind of keeping in mind the algorithm. Amazon's A10, it's no longer A9. It's been that way for a while now, but we want to make sure that when we're talking about search engine optimized for Amazon, that we're keeping in mind what their most recent algorithm is looking at. So we're going to kind of explain things with that. We're going to talk about what could be hurting you with your listings, because unfortunately, product listings are not a set it and forget about it and not touch it again. They do need to be updated with what you're looking at for your listing, because how people are shopping, how people are searching on Amazon really is impacted. So it's not always static. It's not always the same, right? How people are shopping now in 2022 is different than how they were shopping 3 years ago, right? In 2019, things have changed a lot, even from last year. So it's really important that we kind of look at what could be hurting you so that you can fix that, so that you can make sure your listings are most up to date for this year and how people are shopping. And then we're going to also talk about really optimizing your product listing using the Amazon SEO formula. So things that you're going to want to look at, and we're going to use examples and look at actual screenshots of listings and things like that to help you kind of pull that apart so that you can create and have your own listing updated for this year, or listings, obviously. Okay, so the big question is, does it still matter about optimizing on search engine for Amazon? And you probably already know my answer, but of course it is, right? It definitely is important. It matters, and it matters because it's become more competitive for shopping on Amazon. You're getting a lot more cost per click has been increasing for advertising on Amazon. If you already advertise, you probably have seen this happen, especially in the last 2 years. We're consistently seeing overall increase on, it's just getting more expensive and more competitive to advertise on Amazon. And that's not to say you shouldn't do that, but you really need a really good product listing that's optimized, search engine friendly, so that you're not so heavily relying just on advertising, that you're also paying attention to how you're showing up on Amazon without paid advertising. So I'm going to give you an example and walk you through some things. So this first example, remember, to optimize for Amazon with search engine, we're looking at keywords. So we're looking at words and keyword phrases, things that people are typing in on Amazon to find a product, right? This is connecting them to a product listing on Amazon. And this is how people are going to be shopping, because when they type something in, they want to see what's happening. They want to see what's in front of them, their choices, as if they were in a physical retail store and they saw, okay, this is the aisle that I need to look for my product in, for instance. Let me see what my options are, and then let me choose based off of that, right? That is how people shop when they're in a store. The same thing is happening on Amazon. What people are seeing on the first page of when they type a product keyword in or keyword phrase in, those are their options. Typically, they are not shopping on pages 2, 3, 4, unless they're really unsatisfied with what they're seeing on page 1. They're normally not going to go beyond that, right? They're going to see what's right in front of them, and they're going to make the best choice on what fills their need, what solves their problems. Go back to previous webinars. We've talked about knowing your customer avatar on Amazon. Having a really solid idea of who you're trying to target and speaking their language is important too. So you type in, for instance, shampoo. What's happening with that? So one of the first things, just to kind of break down the search results, is the first thing that we're seeing at the very top here. You can see it says sponsored. This is a sponsored brands ad. So they are choosing 3 products that they want to put into that advertising. They have their tagline, they have their leading it to their brand stores page right there. But this is a paid way of getting seen, right? So we're not focusing in on that today, but I do want to explain what's happening when someone types in shampoo in this example. And in this particular case, they're actually running a deal. So that's why we see that extra limited time deal pop up. Now, after that, we're seeing results, but this is actually still, as you can see right above the title, these are all still paid advertising listings, right? So these are still ones that companies are paying to get put in front of potential shoppers. And I'm going to show you in a few slides the search volume, just as an example that we're seeing on shampoo as our example, to see like there are a lot of people obviously searching for shampoo. They're not looking necessarily for something specific in this example, but this is what's presented before them to then make their choice. Now, this is what I really want to focus in on for today. Is you're seeing basically these are the organic or the non-paid listings. So you've got these 4 at the top. This is obviously when you're on a desktop. It's a little different experience when you're shopping on your phone. But this is the first organic result, the second and the third. Now, when you see those results, most people, over 67%, they're clicking on that first result. They're clicking on that first listing, right? That is where the most sessions are going to happen. Now, if they convert is going to depend on, is this fulfilling the need? Because especially with a broad term like shampoo, there might be specific hair care needs that they have that is not fulfilling to them. That's maybe not what they're wanting. So there are really a lot of people that are clicking on that first one, and then it's distributed kind of a trickle down effect on the second and third, but those are where most of the clicks are happening and where most of the visits are going. So if you were in a physical retail store, those are kind of the first 3 products that they are picking up to look at to see, do I want to buy this, right? Okay, so I just kind of explained this, but you can see there's a huge section for paid ads. So paid ads definitely has its place, but what we're referring to is we want your product listings to show up organically, right? We don't want to have to keep relying on advertising, especially as the cost of advertising goes up. So this will really help you. Our focus is to help you win for less, and making sure that you have the right keywords in your listing is going to help your product to show up sooner. That way you don't have to as heavily or at all rely on paid advertising to get seen. Okay, so basically I've already explained this, but you cannot just rely on pay-per-click. It is a great way if you're trying to expedite how quickly you're showing up on the first page. Now, how long it takes does vary quite a bit depending on the search volume, the competitiveness of the keyword. But we like usually more of the what we would call mid-tier keywords. So they're getting solid search volume, but they're not super competitive, because typically, just as a guide, it would really be expensive to bid on, for instance, a keyword like shampoo, because it is getting so much volume, because there are a lot of people spending a lot of money to get those clicks. You could see those were a lot of them were very large brands that were showing up with paid advertising. So I want to, though, kind of break down what's changed when we're looking at how the algorithm has changed on Amazon in 2022. Basically, with the competitiveness that has been just catapulted, especially in the last 2 years, and also more and more brands are not only understanding, they're shifting their focus to online sales channels like Amazon, but they're not only doing that, they're actually then taking action on making sure that their listings are not poor listings anymore. So you've got a lot more competition now, and you can't get away with really bad listings, right? That first image matters. What your other images show, they matter. The bullets, they matter. Those kind of things have an impact with when people are going to your listings, and really if they're going to then become a customer of yours, then buy that product, right? So we're seeing that there's not as much leeway as there used to be. It used to be you could have like, an image or 2 up, you would get away with that, but it's become more competitive. So you really need to see this as a place of persuading customers, helping to speak to that customer avatar that we've talked about before, to really make sure that they are getting the best experience possible when they're looking at your listings. Everything is sharp and clean. The images are, the copy is not only filled with good keywords, but also readable, because you don't want to just have a bunch of words that don't make sense to people. Other changes that have happened has been low quality listings that don't convert. They're going to lose their indexing if they're not converting. So this is very, very important, especially if you have not updated your listings in a while. We like to go through and make sure that we're constantly updating product listings for brands. But if you haven't touched a listing in over a year, this is something that you could be missing out on your indexing, what you previously were showing up for. You could have a competitor come in and actually start to convert better for that keyword because their listing is more built out, and they are also targeting the right keywords, even and also maybe pairing it typically with paid ads to kind of boost that, to get that visibility. And then you haven't done as much with it because you've just left it there. So you may have lost out on some organic results or indexing that happens. So when I say indexing, essentially that's you're actually, when that keyword is typed in, you're showing up for it. Now, where you show up is obviously important too, because I explained the first page is the most important, but you should be tracking, especially keywords that you want to show up for that are super relevant for your customers. Usually, especially if they're very more niche focused, descriptive of your product that you know customers are searching for. Those are ones that you want to make sure that you're not missing out on, because we have actually seen examples of brands lose indexing on their own brand name, which is crazy. Like, that is something that you would think, well, you know, it should be there, it should show up. But we've even seen things where there's something with the listing that was wrong, that they actually lost their indexing and they didn't appear first paid organically, I should say, because we were running paid ads for them, but they weren't showing up first organically, which is where they definitely should be, right? In that particular case, they had lost indexing because Amazon had changed the product category, which then made them lose that indexing. So we had to fix the product category, redirect it correctly so that they would show up for their own brand name. But that's something that if you're not tracking, that you will definitely want to. Your brand name would be the first one that you would always want to be showing up first organically. But also, once again, those keywords that you're really trying to target, that are really focused in on the customers that are attracted to your products, you want to make sure that you're tracking of where that's happening, because you could lose it. And another change is you really need to think ahead of time, a strategy, besides just kind of throwing up a new listing and hoping it sticks. Maybe back in 2015, 2016, early, when not as many people were on Amazon and listings weren't as built out as they are, people may have been able to get away with things of putting up a brand new listing. But have you ever dealt with thinking, okay, we have this new product and we're going to add this into our Amazon catalog. You put it up on Amazon and then nothing happens. It seems like crickets. People are really not finding it. They're really not seeing it. They're not even buying it. Maybe you're getting a few sales here and there. This could be that the problem could be that you haven't mapped out a good enough strategy to make sure that you're competitive enough when you initially launch that new product on Amazon. So, you definitely want to be making sure you're doing keyword research. You're probably going to need to run advertising on it initially, at the very least, if you want to get more eyeballs on it, things like that. But you can no longer throw up the listing and just think that it's going to automatically get seen. So what else has changed? So I kind of mentioned some of these things, but basically overall, Amazon sales, there's more competition now than in 2020. It's grown exponentially. That year, we saw a huge shift in the demand for more brands understanding their need to do something with their Amazon sales channel. So maybe that's been you. Maybe you've said, I know that there's more sales that I could be getting, more market I could be getting on Amazon. I just don't know how to do it. That's a lot of what people were thinking in 2020, because in 2020, as you know, a lot of physical retail stores, if that's where you were depending on sales, were not even open for a while, or they had very limited, people had to go and do pickup or things like that. So it really changed the approach that a lot of companies had, and they went to a lot of online sales channel, Amazon being a huge one. So we noticed that really shifted the market. Online sales have been steadily increasing every year on Amazon, but it continued to surpass what was projected from 2020. It basically increased the growth a lot more than was anticipated originally, and catapulted that a lot. So just know that that is happening. Another thing is that really you have to focus heavily on relevant keywords and also driving traffic to those keywords. If you with a good, solid product that fulfills the needs to really stand out from the competition. So initially you may have to, and we do recommend running some traffic too, especially if it was a new listing, but it's also if you're looking at, I need to gain momentum on this particular keyword that I want to show up for. It's super relevant. I know it will convert well. And maybe you've already seen data showing that, but I'm still not on the first page. That approach really does help. Whereas it used to be that you didn't have to kind of mix that in, like I said, earlier on, years and years ago. So it really does mean that you have to focus in on making sure you have the right keywords in your listing, a lot of different places. Your title, your bullets are important. And then top brands, what are people that are doing really well doing? They're also maximizing what's available to them. They're looking at brand registry. So if you have that live trademark, they're looking at all the features available. So they're making sure that their listing is optimized. So it's not only has relevant keywords, but that they are testing out, for instance, you can, with experiments in Seller Central, you can test out A+ content. As one example, you can test out the title, the primary image. Have you been testing those out? If not, you should be looking at testing those things. You should be looking to see how does that impact your conversion? Because when your listing is converting better, that's going to show more favorably in Amazon's algorithm with your results. So you're going to be appearing higher for what you're targeting. So that's really helpful. Also becoming aware of the tools that Amazon gives you in Seller Central. There are a lot of tools within Amazon that did not exist even 2 years ago, even a year ago. So I can't remember, there was over 50 new features in the late 2021 that Amazon had released within like the last year that was available to sellers because they want to make it a place where people can maximize their opportunities. So you should be always checking in on Seller Central to see what has changed, what new features are available, like the discovery tools, things like that, to see how you can better optimize your listing, how you can make sure to add in anything that's missing on your listing. A lot of times there's certain elements that are not initially filled out when you create a new listing, or maybe a third-party seller created your listing. So making sure all the information is in there so that your more eyeballs can get seen. So when people are, for instance, filtering things, are they coming across your products? That's not as heavily related to keyword focus, but that's more of related to making sure all that information is filled out on your listing so that people, when they are trying to find a specific thing like for their hands or something, that they're coming across your product. So what are the new ranking factors? I've already kind of mentioned the relevancy, but relevancy is key. So not just throwing in random words, because it's not going to help you in the long run to have a ton of different words, for instance, in your title, if it's really not a good fit. I know a lot of people, for instance, like to use the word gifts or gift in their listing. That could help you, but that may not help you. So making sure it's relevant. If it's not a giftable type of product, it's not going to help you. If anything, it could hurt you. So making sure that you're relevant for the keywords that you're adding into your copy, in the title, in the 5 bullets, in your product description area. Conversion rate is huge, right? Are they buying when they go to your listing? When they type something in and they find your product, are they then converting and buying? That's going to impact your ranking organically on Amazon. So making sure if you're targeting something that's completely irrelevant, that won't convert, that could end up hurting you, where you could use those keyword spaces within your title, within your bullets, to ones that are more relevant, that are targeted, that will convert. So make sure you're using, you have good usage of the keywords that you're putting in your listing, right? Also, I mentioned this before, but driving traffic through pay-per-click, when it's paired with SEO listings, we do see that generates faster results, because ranking high up on the first page for Amazon, depending on how competitive the keyword is, that can take time. That can take months, like 2 months. It could take 6 months. It could be that you are in such a competitive category that you would maybe have to spend a lot of money to get it on the first page. So having that reality check of making sure that, you know, how competitive is this keyword that you're going after? Is it a reasonable keyword to go after? But we like pairing it with advertising because it does help generate faster results than it would take to do long-term. So when you think about website SEOs, you know, sometimes that can take time to build up. With Amazon, we've seen that it just really helps give it a nice boost if it's already in the listing, and then you're pairing it with advertising. And then you can also see from your advertising efforts how people are converting. Is that leading to sales? And that could kind of help you to see, is this relevant? And then also paying attention to low conversion rates. Knowing kind of the standard for your industry, just to kind of give you a frame of reference, on Amazon, we see that the average conversion rate is about around 12%. So that's actually a really solid conversion rate. When you think about off of Amazon, conversion rates are not nearly that high. We have seen much higher. The more niche your product is and focused in on specific people, the higher of a conversion rate you should expect to see. And then going back to what I had mentioned earlier of how you want to not just leave your listing the same, you want to be testing out new things within your listing to see, is there more that I could be getting out of this product, this listing, essentially converting better? Because obviously the more it converts, the better that will be for your ranking on Amazon search engine. And then also that'll help you with your sales to increase. And then kind of an indirect factor with ranking as well. And this would be with advertising as well, and how the performance of your ads too is really looking at that social proof, looking at those reviews that you have for your product. You usually want a 4-star product or above, depending on the type of product. I know a lot of that are in the beauty category, that can be people either love it or they don't like it kind of thing, where there's a big discrepancy. But for the most part, you want to see a heavily weighted towards the 4 stars on your product review and higher. You also want to look to see, is there something that you need to update or fix, explain better? So although you are writing, when you're writing copy and creating new content for your listing, you also want to pay attention to making sure you're explaining things really well. And then that social proof will indirectly help you as well with your ranking, because if you're pairing it with running ads, your ads are going to perform better when you have that social proof there that people can see. People are not going to want to click on a 2-star product ad. That's not as enticing as seeing a 4-star and up product. Okay, so really you need to figure out what are the most important keywords based on your niche. Now, I mentioned this before, but the volume of the keywords is not necessarily the approach that you want to do. And typically, if you're trying to win for less on Amazon, that will not be your approach, because it'll be very, very expensive to get there. But thinking through what is specifically most relevant for my product, when people are typing things in, it's getting a good search volume, but you really want to look to see what fits best with your product. Then you'll really want to, from there, brainstorm. You're going to want to think through what, kind of keywords that you've heard customers speak to you about and say to you, whether it be through your website, maybe they've emailed you directly, maybe you talk to people, your customers on the phone, brainstorming with your team. What's the language that people use to describe our product? What are words they say? Look at the reviews if you're not as sure on your website or customer feedback. Looking at your Amazon product reviews that are already there is another place to figure out how are people describing your product. Another place that you would want to do is to look at the Amazon's search bar. So you can start typing things in. You'll notice a lot of auto fill happens within Amazon. Kind of look down that list if you need to kind of generate more ideas of what kind of keywords you're trying to go after. And then when you click on that, does your listing appear? And then if so, is it on the first page? A lot of times you don't want to have to be going through pages 2, 3, 4, and beyond for sure to see where it lands. But you will want to know a starting point. And that's kind of more in the planning process of knowing your before to then knowing your goal and your end point. But those are a few things that you want to do. So then you'll also want to set that listing up. So after you've figured out what keywords are most important to target, after you've brainstormed additional ideas of those things that people are searching that's relevant, then you'll want to really work on setting up your listing so that it converts on those keywords. So you're going to want to, the ones that you really want to target are usually going to be higher up in the listing. So when you think about the top, left kind of area, top right, if you're on desktop, what are people, that title, what are they seeing? And if you really want to focus in heavily on something, you'll most likely want in the title. And then the other place after that is going to be the bullets. And then another place is the product description. Now, if you have A+ content because you're brand registered, I want you to make a note to check your listings that already have that A+. Do you have product description information already in there on the back end of your listing? So the A+ replaces the product description, like the text by itself. However, Amazon themselves have said that that product description text actually does help with ranking for search terms. So you want to use up all the places that Amazon allows, and that's one that a lot of people don't realize that can be used, or they have, and I think it's, I'm trying to remember, 1,500 to 2,000 characters. I don't have it right in front of me. That's the limit typically for the product description. That's a lot more than you get on your title, obviously, and more on the bullets. But the most important ones, like I said, do put those higher up, like on that title. Other places too, in your listing, you're going to look at the back end, right? Those are going to be more for like misspellings and things like that. Then optimize that listing for being optimized for Amazon's search engine, right? Then think about what are customers searching for every month, and then knowing how your customers search is going to be the ongoing thing, because certain keywords can start to rise up. This is especially popular with like trends that happen. So a few years back, keto became very popular. So if your product would be classified as keto, because remember, you want it to be relevant. If it's not true, don't put it in there just to get shown. But if it was, then you would want to make sure that that was added in. And if you had not been paying attention or updating your listing, you would have missed out on that huge opportunity for a lot of people starting to search for the food with keto that are keto friendly, things like that. And if you didn't have that, you would be missing out on those searches, and that was getting a high search volume. So apply that to your product as well. Are there things that are happening around that people are now very interested in, and incorporating that into your listing is important to do. And like I said, how they search every month changes too. And that's a lot of times with trends and things like that, and just even what they're searching. So you could have something spike and then drop dramatically, things like that. So always pay attention to that. A lot of times, like Google keywords and trends are helpful to look into as well. And then this kind of seems basic, but it's so foundational. You have to have a great product and provide great customer service along with that. So you could have all of the keywords that you need in your listing, but if your product is not, if there's too many problems with the product and they haven't been fixed, that is something that really does need to be revisited. You need to have it updated, a version 2.0 kind of thing going on, because really it's hard to sell and to rank if your product is just not delivering of what customers expect. And paying attention to those product reviews, kind of with the social proofing that I mentioned earlier, what is it exactly that people are frustrated with or not happy about? Is this something that can get fixed? And if so, how can you fix that to give them a better experience? Maybe it's a lack of instructions of how to use your product. Have you thought about adding a product insert with a QR code so that people can scan and understand exactly how to use your product? That could fill a learning gap, that maybe you have that video on your listing, but when people physically receive your product from in the mail, they open it up. A lot of times they're not going back to the listing to look at the video, right? They're looking at what's in that package. So it may be adding an insert where they can scan it on their phone and then watch how to use this, because if they don't know how to use it properly, then there could be negative reviews because of that, or there could be returns because of that. So just really providing that great service. If you're using Fulfilled by Amazon, and I love it, and I hope you are taking advantage of it if you can, then you'll want to make sure that you're servicing them as well as you can. You have to be careful about certain things. Remember, you cannot ask them to remove a negative review. If you've given them a refund, say, hey, we've applied a refund. If you can please remove your negative review, that would be great. Be careful. That is very much so against Amazon's terms of service. They have no longer it's no longer a gray area. It's a very against their terms of service. So make sure that you're not doing anything that's against what Amazon's policies say, but definitely just provide that great service from start to finish. And then track your results. So this is where you want to know for this keyword that you think is very, very important, that you're seeing a solid search volume on, you're going to want to say, where's our starting point? Maybe you're on page 5, result number 3. You need to know your starting point so that you can know from the updates to your listing with the content and the copy, how does that change, and advertising perhaps as well, how is that changing the ranking? Is it starting to move up to page 4, 3? Like, you need to be tracking the progress, because if you're not going to know if it's working or not. And there could be a time where you might need to revisit it and say, okay, I thought that this was a really important keyword, but I'm understanding that people are not seeing this as relevant as I thought it would. So we need to revisit this, and we want to target this instead. So I would definitely give it some time after you update the listing. But if you're not seeing any momentum and movement after 2 to 3 months, I would definitely revisit it to say, okay, where do we need to maybe put our attention instead? Because there may be a better keyword to focus in on. So like I said, though, just tracking the results is super important. Okay. When you're looking at on-page optimization, I already actually mentioned this earlier, but when people are on Amazon, they are converting much higher. They have their payment information, remember, already saved. They don't have to go through the trouble of going through a separate link that does the PayPal, or even adding their shipping information. These sound kind of like small little things, but Amazon has made it such a seamless customer shopping experience that people love shopping there. I know I have bought, I had a lot of gifts to buy this time of year, a lot of birthdays and things like that I'm buying gifts for. So I know my payment information is already saved in my account. I know that I don't have to, add my shipping address every single time. So we're seeing a lot higher than the industry average for conversions on Amazon. Amazon's just built a wonderful system for that. You're going to see it higher than you would on your own website. If you use like a Shopify website, etc., you're seeing it much higher. So this is where just continuing to optimize is going to just help you to get more sales. And then really leverage video as well to help with conversions if you haven't already included that. And those don't have to be very complex videos. You could use content perhaps that maybe if you have permission that someone else has created, someone that uses the product or things like that. You'll always want to check Amazon's permissions or their kind of guidelines on videos, but they do help with conversion rates. So definitely make sure you're using those in your listings. And then if you can, if there are eligible variations, you can get more visibility than if you had 5 separate listings put out on Amazon than if it's one listing that had 5 different variations, if it's eligible. So first check to see if it's eligible. And if it is, so an example could be like flavor variation. And another example would be a size variation. Maybe you have like a 1 ounce and a 5 ounce, or an 8 ounce and a 16 ounce type of product. Those could be eligible to be on the same listing. And a lot of times, if you're like any other brand on Amazon, you are not the one that created that listing originally. We have seen this a lot of times happen where other people threw up the listings, the third-party sellers that started selling it, and they weren't obviously concerned about anything except just they wanted to resell the product. So a lot of times your catalog on Amazon needs to make sure that it's essentially cleaned up, because if you have a really good product that's getting a lot of visibility, maybe on your 8 ounce, but on your 16 ounce, it's not. If you can merge those together, those can really help you to get seen more on Amazon. So we've seen that work very, very well. Another thing is making sure that you're targeting them for what's relevant. And I've already kind of mentioned this several times, so I won't spend too much time on that, but it's really important to make it relevant. And then also copy that's persuasive. You want it to be SEO friendly, so there has to be a balance. You want it to index for keywords, but you also want it to essentially help them to see and speak to them, to see their need for this and how your product can fulfill their need for what they're wanting to solve, what kind of problem they're wanting to solve, why are they coming to your listing to begin with, and what do you offer that's distinct and different. So don't just look at optimizing it for the keywords, although that is very important and needs to be in the copy, but you also want to write it to the customers so that they understand how and why they need this. And then you'll want to make sure, I've already mentioned this, but the keywords should be in that title, the bullets, the back end. And like I said, the top is kind of most heavily with search volume, Amazon's algorithm kind of really weighs that pretty heavily. So you will want to pay attention to those words that you really want to gain traction on, putting those higher up in your listing. Then make sure, is all of your information available on your product listing? So this is not necessarily optimizing it just for the keywords, but optimizing it so that you can convert, because if people don't know what they're buying, then they're not necessarily going to convert, or they might get upset and have a return because they didn't understand this contained this ingredient and I can't have this. So make sure you have images of, like, if you have ingredients in your product, that it's on the listing in the images. And then, like I said, read the reviews, look at also the questions and answers that are asked. And you might, if you're noticing people are saying, like, I'm not really sure like what this is, or maybe they're saying something to the fact of, I'm not sure how big this was, and when I got it, it was a lot smaller. You may need to, for instance, add an image that gives them a size reference, so there's no feeling of being misled, because you don't want to leave them with a bad experience at all, right? So if there's anything unclear, read through the listing, see where you can improve, and then that's what you're going to incorporate as well into your new listing. And then I already mentioned it, but split test to really maximize those conversions. If you're eligible, you're looking inside of Amazon experiments to see what listings are eligible, because you want to continue to improve, and that's going to help with how you're ranking on Amazon. The better you are optimizing your listing. Okay, so going back to our example of shampoo, you can see the word shampoo by itself has a ton of search volume, right? A ton of searches every 30 days. Where are you showing up within that search term? That high of volume keyword is going to be very, very hard to show up first, right? Purple shampoo, this is an example I'm going to show in just a minute. That actually has quite a bit of search volume, and it may have not been a word that you thought about, but it might be a word that's relevant to you. So looking through different keywords, where you're getting, like, how much search volume is happening, and then seeing where you're ranking. This is also going to help in that brainstorm phase when you're thinking through, what are people typing in to find my product and what's relevant. Okay, and then really off-page SEO, so getting that listing to get found. My recommendation is to start with a top 5 of keywords that you want to target, that you want to rank in those top 3, 4. Now, be careful about not being, especially if it's not, if you're not able to compete to get to the first page of the word shampoo, for instance, it's very competitive. So you're not always looking at your search volume. You're going to want to see what that's really, really relevant, that is still people are still looking for it, they're searching for it, but it's not super competitive. So it's usually going to be you're going to have more keywords involved in it. So it's more of a keyword phrase, and then track, like I said, to see where it happens. Getting indexed by adding into listing content, then also pairing it with traffic with paid searches on Amazon. I mentioned that earlier. That's going to be super helpful to do that. I also don't have this here, but if you are doing any advertising off of Amazon, or you have your social media following, do they know it's available on Amazon? Because for those that don't shop maybe on your website, they may convert on Amazon. And then making sure you're taking advantage of that brand referral bonus that Amazon has been offering. because that'll give you a discount on your FBA fees. Maximize search term throughout the listing. I've already mentioned there's a lot of different places, and use up the spaces that Amazon gives you. Don't think, well, I've already put in all that I want. A lot of times those smaller keywords are ones people are ignoring that you could be starting to dominate, and then continue to build out the ones that you're showing up first for with results. And it is more authoritative on Amazon than on Google. So when you're looking, if someone's on Google, they actually, a lot of times you will see your Amazon product listing result will show even before sometimes your own website. So really optimizing it for Amazon is super important to convert, so that when they are seeing it, if they're Googling something, that they'll see that Amazon listing, they'll click on it and they'll buy. That's really important too. So here's just an example of a shampoo. This is the one that was ranked organically first. So I had mentioned earlier, I believe that, so this is, you can see these are variations right here. I believe that this is a conditioner. So this is their shampoo conditioner type. That's how they set up the variation. That's really important. You can see that they have a very robust title, right? This is very built out. This isn't just the product name by itself, right? There are a lot of keywords that they've looked at to see what is it that people are searching. So people are looking for paraben free, people are looking for sulfate free. And just remember, when they're on their phones, mobile shoppers, they're not going to see as much. So they do have their most important information in those first few words. They have their brand stores page linked as well. And then you can see they're taking advantage of all 5 bullet points here. And they're incorporating a lot of different keywords: hydrating, softening hair. These are things that people that want that soft, healthy hair in a shampoo are looking for, right? So they know what people are kind of wanting, and they know what people are searching, and they're incorporating it into why someone would want this product. You can see they have their images. They have 2 videos on this listing. They have subscribe and save set up. So these are really important things. And they obviously have solid reviews over, it's almost at 4.5. And then they're getting a high rank with shampoo and hair conditioner. Okay, so how to build up good relevant keywords. And this I'm going to go through pretty quickly because we're getting almost to the top of the hour, but research, what are people searching? Look at the competitiveness of the market. Look to see who's doing things already, how they're doing it. Remember, using the words that your customers use, how they're talking about your products, how they're describing it is important. Really focus in on maybe a primary keyword to begin with that you want to target, that you want to rank for, and start tracking that so that you can see how it's moving. Look at your efforts. Once again, that starting point, that end point, knowing that it's not going to happen in a day, but it should happen relatively quickly. And you should see some kind of movement. If you're not seeing any, could be too competitive of a keyword that you've chosen. It could be not relevant enough of a keyword that you chose. At a certain point, you may need to reevaluate and go back to the drawing board and say, okay, I need to find some other keyword lists that I'm going to target instead. Now, once you do get that desired result, that first page result, especially in the top 3, go on to your next keyword phrase, right? So really, to get more traction, you'll want to do multiple keywords at once and not just one at a time, because that would be a lot slower of a process. So if you want those faster results, do try to track more than just like a primary keyword and only one. So what do listings usually have? They get results. So you can see they are targeting in the title and the bullets, title being the best. They have a history of product reviews, strong reviews, usually over 4 stars. They are built to convert. So when people get there, they actually want to buy the product. I think this is an underrated one, but making sure you're highlighting your points of differentiation, because especially for certain keywords, when people are looking at products, they need to understand right away what makes your product different. What is it that is important to people? Not just what you think is important, but what is it that you've heard from your customers is distinctive about your product that would make them choose that over the many competitors on Amazon. You really don't always want them relying just on price. There are going to be obviously people that are shopping just on what's the cheapest option, but a lot of times that's a hard place to be in, and that's usually for the large mega brands. So you really want to highlight your differentiation point. And then targeting your ads, targeting your competitors' names through ads as well is going to be helpful. Who is it? Whose audience, whose customers, if you will, do you want to get that's going to be relevant? You can target those competitor brand names there. You can't, within your listing, have your competitors' names. You can get in trouble for that. And Amazon has made it easier for brands to report if you're infringing on that using their brand name incorrectly. But you are allowed to use competitor names with targeting on ad campaigns. Okay. There is a lot that I already covered, and I've done a ton of talking. So this is just kind of a quick recap, and I'm actually not going to even read through these since we're running kind of towards the end of the hour now. But it is important to have all these things in place. So I think a huge thing is you can learn and think, okay, I just learned some new things that I can see would help my products on Amazon, my brand. But if you don't write it out, that's going to just kind of, it's not going to be the best use of your time. So you've spent time, you've taken time out of your day to learn about this, to see the possibilities, to even think through some ideas yourself now. But I think it's most important to actually then put it down on, I like pen and paper, or digitally if you prefer, but making sure it's written down so that you can have a plan that you can move forward with. So I think a huge thing that a lot of times the mistake is you think, okay, I've heard these great ideas, and then you're just like so excited, but you get distracted within the day to day. Everything kind of pulls you in a lot of different directions, whether you're the business owner of the company yourself, or if you're the director of marketing, you have a lot of different things on your plate. So making sure that you know who is responsible, that may have to be you, or that would be another team member, or alternatively, that could be a company like an agency like ours, like Fluency, that provides that service. But you do need to know who that's going to be. You can't just hope for the best, because if you really haven't directed either yourself to be responsible or someone else, then it's not usually going to happen. I want to see you write a person's name down. So if you have a pen and paper near you, I have my planner. I love using, I use the, I have the full focus planner. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. This is my blue folder or planner, but write down on the pen and paper that you have in front of you, that piece of paper, who is that person? I don't want you to just kind of write a department, but specifically, who is that person? Because if you have just a whole department of people, then no one might really do anything because they don't know which person's responsible. So write that person's name down and then inform them. Let them know, if it isn't you, let them know that this is what you want to see happen. And then they should be looking at the starting point of where things are as they are now. And then talk to them through what you want to see happen at the end of the quarter. I really like thinking through things on a 90-day plan. A month seems kind of really short, but I think 90 days gives you enough time to see traction, to see movement. So look to see what is that end result. And it may have to shift, as we mentioned earlier. You may think that this keyword is great to target, but you're not getting any movement. So within that quarter, you may have to pivot, but where do you want to be at the end? So think through that and jot that down. And then who will be rolling out? This is kind of similar to the last one, but who's going to be rolling out the strategies to maximize all the different things we talked about? Put someone responsible, someone that can create the strategy, and then have them execute on the strategy. It may be that person that strategizes, it may be someone else on your team. Like I said, it could be like an agency, a company that does this for brands already, but make sure that you have those things in place, because if you don't, and if you're like any business owner or director of marketing, you're probably going to get very busy and very distracted, because tomorrow you're going to learn about TikTok ads or something, which is just, those things can get so distracting, right? So make sure that you have someone responsible, and then even thinking through, okay, who's going to be planning out, like mapping out the strategy, and then who is going to then be taking action. It could be the same person. but just thinking through and writing that down. Okay. Takeaways. So think through if you've learned anything, maybe you've noticed or thought of something about your listings, about your brand. Maybe you're like a lot of brands where you're like, I don't even know who created my listings years ago. They look okay, but we didn't set them up and they aren't set up correctly. Maybe it's just noticing little things like that, but just kind of write down or think in your head of what are some things that you've noticed or thought about as we've been talking through optimizing your listing and really making sure that you're focused on specifically optimizing, obviously, on Amazon search engine. If you need any help, you can post "Let's talk" in the comments. I think I'd mentioned it earlier. It's not on this slide. It might not, actually, I don't think I have it. If you need, if you have any questions that you prefer to email, you could always email contact@clickfluency.com. Or you could, if you prefer chat, like text messaging, you can, and you just want a quick call, you can text this number here to say, and just say, call me. And then that way I can, we can give you a call, and it would be a no obligation, just a free discovery call. Maybe you need to process things a little bit. Maybe you're one of those people that you need to bounce ideas off of other people. You kind of know where you are, but you need a little bit more of a understanding of where you are to then where you want to go. Feel free to text us there and we can set that up. And then just a little bit about us, but yeah, I already shared it at the beginning, but we really like to work towards helping brands win on Amazon. And we are a full service Amazon agency for less than the cost of one employee. So we do everything from what we mentioned today, optimizing for search engine on Amazon, listing optimizations, advertising on Amazon, and just all those little things on Amazon as well of the day-to-day operations with Amazon that we handle for the brands that we work with. So if you're interested, I would love to hear from you and talk to you a little bit more. And that is all I have. So I am going to, let's see. I'm going to stop my screen share. There we go. Any questions? If you're watching the replay, I am actually going to stop recording now because we're doing a live Q&A for those that have attended live. So I hope to see you next month if you're watching the replay.